Welcome to 3 Yards Per Carry, a podcast covering the Miami Dolphins and the NFL. Now, here's your hosts, Chris, Alf, and Simon.
Miami has the Dolphins.
And we're on, and welcome to another edition of 3 Yards Per Carry, a trade edition, trade deadline edition of 3 Yards Per Carry. Dolphins.
Is this Victory Tuesday, Alf?
Yeah, this is Victory Tuesday. This is Victory Tuesday, which reminds me I have to do another giveaway on OnlyFans. Like, these things are costing me money. The Dolphins start racking up wins. Like, you know, I'm gonna be like hundreds of dollars in the hole giving away things. And yes, I give away things on OnlyFans. Okay,
for real, like you give away some pretty valuable things. Like these patrons better be grateful.
Although lately, because the Dolphins are winning so much, and that's the rule, by the way, we have a Victory Monday, we have a Victory Tuesday, which this week is going to be a Victory Tuesday.
But, well, no, I mean, they were separate. We still had a Victory Monday. We just didn't also
do
podcast
a pod. Right.
Because we were busy taking our kids out for candy.
Yeah, exactly. And, I was walking around a block with a beer in hand and my dog. My dog was dressed as Chucky, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah. You know, and I went out with my nephew. My nephew was dressed as an astronaut. He was the cutest little 17-month-old astronaut you'll ever see. But I guess the Dolphins did something today, and we'll talk about it. But as always, we are brought to you by Manscaped. Use promo code 5RSN, get 20% off your entire order. 5RSN. Also, free shipping. And of course, Better Edge. Go to betteredge.com/5reasons. And you got a $25 sign-up bonus just for signing up. And, of course, Prize Picks. I play Prize Picks all the time. I played it last night, by the way. I had Joe Burrow over 285 yards passing. I was an idiot. But if you're not an idiot, you could have taken the under and just, use the promo code 5, F-I-V-E, and it's $100 sign-up bonus, which means you deposit $100, they give you $100, you roll it over once, which means you bet it through one time and you get $100. I don't know.
That's not too bad.
I don't know how
rolling over one time.
Yeah, I don't know how you can have a better. There's no way you can have a better promo than that. Of course, use a promo 5 F-I-V-E. All right, Dolphins did some work.
Well, that's why it's Victory Tuesday, Alf, because we had a Victory Monday for the game.
Yes, and then
we had a Victory Tuesday for the trade deadline.
Yes, and I've seen it all. I don't know, man. I'm just gonna start ignoring some of those people, but some people were like, I don't know about this trade. Like, is Bradley Chubb really all that good? Yeah, he is. He's really, really, really good. And I guess we're just going to start right there. First of all, what they gave up, who gives a crap? I said this on Twitter, and I don't know if you disagree with my philosophy. When your team is good and you have a pick that's past 25th, and I'm sorry, you saw the 49ers, they were overwhelming in that game against the Rams. They're going to win a pile of games. They're going to be picking in the late 20s, maybe even early 30s, because they got to reserve the last two draft picks.
Right now their pick is number 20 in the draft order according to Tankathon. That's them sitting at first off, we skipped it. For those of you who have been under a rock, today the Miami Dolphins traded for Denver Broncos defensive end outside linebacker Bradley Chubb, one of the most efficient pass rushers in the NFL. And has been for years. And they traded their San Francisco first round pick plus Chase Edmonds for Chubb. Let's get that out there. And then we'll, okay. So the San Francisco pick is currently number 20 in the draft, and we think probably heading downward, right?
Yes, it's going to be awful. It's going to be. I'll handicap it right now. They're winning 11 games minimum, and they're picking 27th. Who gives a crap about picking 27th? I don't. Not when this team is ready-made. I would always trade it for a ready-made player or for more picks.
It's essentially in the Noah Igbenogany area of the draft.
Yep, absolutely. Give me top 15, top 20 picks, or give me, a lot of picks, so that way I can miss a lot, but I could hit some. You know what I mean? Or I do with what the Rams do: fuck them picks and get impact players for late first round picks. So yeah, I love this trade, and I'll tell you why I love this trade, and then you could go on why you like this trade. I love this trade because I think it's going to unlock Jalen Phillips. Jalen Phillips, they've been trying to use him in that buck linebacker spot, trying to rush wide in a lot of these sets, and he's just getting there. And you can see, his pressure rate. Oh, he keeps going up, and he keeps piling up pressures and hurries, but he's not getting sacks. Well, why isn't he getting sacks? It's simple physics, people. He's too far away from the quarterback, and he's really good rushing as a 3 tech and as a 5 tech. They could have him do that now as Bradley Chubb rushes off of the edge as the buck linebacker. I love this trade. It's going to unlock Jalen Phillips. You have 2 edge players now, 26 and 23 years old. Great work by Chris Greer, and you didn't give up that much. So I love the trade.
I think the thing to note is that as we're talking about how low the San Francisco pick is going from here, a couple of weeks back, we talked about it. The San Francisco 49ers traded for Christian McCaffrey, which was, a good fit for them, a guy that has proven that he plays in their system, that he's done that. He's played in that system before. And he's a pro, a proven playmaker. The guy, he's been sort of an all-world type at times at running back. And that's a system that can really just go very far with exactly that kind of player. It was just such a good overall fit. And the cascade effect from that is, okay, crap. There was a point where it looked like we were getting the number 12 overall pick from the San Francisco 49ers. It was ranked on Tankathon or something. And it was like, well, that ain't going to happen. That is not going to happen anymore now. And the other thing that set off a domino effect is Trey Lance got hurt right away at the beginning of the year. And now even before that, they brought Jimmy Garoppolo back. They, settled a deal with him to be the backup. And then Trey Lance gets hurt, and now Jimmy Garoppolo's there, and Jimmy Garoppolo is a big-time winner in San Francisco. He doesn't stay healthy, but he is a big-time winner in San Francisco. So that improved their outlook tremendously. And then they traded for Christian McCaffrey, which improved their outlook even more. They're looking good. As you say, this is going to be a late first round pick. This is definitely in the, we picked Noah Igbenogany at number 30 overall, and if you go back, Isaiah Wilson was the pick before him at number 29. And, looking at some other draft picks taken around that area of the draft, it's really very hit or miss, mostly, even mostly miss. And so that set off a whole domino effect, because not only is this pick looking like a really bad one for us in the first round, but it's also Christian McCaffrey displaces Jeff Wilson. He displaces all of the running backs in San Francisco, but among them, Elijah Mitchell, who's now getting healthy, and Jeff Wilson, and they're still, I think they're still trying to get things out of Trey Sermon, and so it really just shook loose both things that happened today, which were the trade for Bradley Chubb, and then the trade for running back Jeff Wilson and the 49ers. Both of those things probably had their genesis in the Christian McCaffrey trade, if you really think about it. And so I think that, what this signifies to me is a changing of philosophy in a number of ways, because you can look at this defensively and you say, this is changing. We're changing tack here on defense, because the defense had been about the high paid premier corners that the Dolphins were getting mileage out of, with Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. Well, guess what? Byron Jones hasn't played at all this year. And frankly, I don't think he's going to. And I'm not trying to break news or anything like that. I just think that they're probably toward the end of their rope with him.
I spoke about it on the last podcast. I know it's arbitrary, but drop dead date is 1 week away. Okay. Yeah. And I really do believe that coaches in a week from today, the coaches will just say, okay, that's it. We're not going to hold out any more hope.
Meanwhile, Xavier Howard up and down this year a little bit, not healthy, getting old. He's getting toward 30 years old. The corners, it's not well advertised. I mentioned it before on another pod. It's not well advertised because we talk about running backs all the time with that drop, that date. But it is no less true about corners. He is reaching there. So they were getting a lot of mileage out of the high paid premier corners, and using that blitz scheme and, relying on them so that they could blitz, so aggressively. Well, now that's not working anymore. That's you're getting the sputter out of that approach. And so this is a change tack to now going with a dominating defensive front that can get pressure on their own. And then, if Josh Boyer sticks around as the defensive coordinator for the Dolphins, which right now I think you have to say he will. The jury's it's still out, but I think right now he'll probably be back. He has a knack for pulling in defensive backs you never even heard of, right? That come from nowhere.
I admitted I had no idea what the hell Texas A&M. I know what Texas A&M is.
Texas A&M Commerce. I hadn't even heard of his school, let alone Cater Coho.
Yeah, when I heard he's from Texas A&M, and I heard it in camp, and I'm like, nah, he's that kid, and I got sold. I said it on the pod, and I said it on OnlyFans. I got sold Cater Coho hard at camp. I was told this guy's gonna be something, and I'm talking about day one of camp, where I just saw number 38 running around out there, and so I'm like, oh, it's kind of short, but kind of strong looking. I guess he's a slot guy, and I'm like, no. I was told that this guy's gonna stick around. He's a really good player. He's from Texas A&M Commerce, and I'm like, from Texas A&M? How come I never saw him play? No, Texas A&M Commerce. What the hell is that?
Well, I mean, but if you go back in Josh Boyer's history, there's not just that. He pulled Nick Needham out of nowhere, right? If you look even at this year, you're talking about the contributions they've gotten out of Keon Crossan. That was not a marquee acquisition by any means. Justin Bethel came in. We were joking about it on the podcast. He was 32 years old, and he had played 59 coverage snaps or something like that before in his career, up to 32 years old. And then he had 60 of them in the game. And they got good contribution out of him. And you go back and there's infamous what was it, Malcolm Butler, was that the corner, or am I thinking? I always get him confused with the defensive lineman, and also there was a linebacker that had a similar name. But you go back and this is something that Josh Boyer has actually talked about. He's fleshed out. He's done it in interviews. It's not just, we're not just making this up, right? He's talked about how he does really like to find those guys, those undrafted free agents amongst the defensive backs in particular. And he's good at it. He's good at it. So this reminds me a little bit of like when the Dolphins originally hired Hudson Houck as offensive line coach under Nick Saban. And Nick Saban flat out said, the idea of hiring Hudson Houck is that we don't necessarily need to spend all that much in our resources on the offensive line because he's such a good coach. He's such a well-reputed coach. Well, you have kind of maybe a similar thing going on in the defensive backs with Josh Boyer's ability to kind of pull diamonds out of nowhere, or maybe not diamonds, but guys that are okay, that play surprisingly okay football, but they're still not the premier players. They're not Xavier Howard. They're not those guys. So what you do instead is you have a dominating defensive front, and that protects those defensive backs. That protects those corners who are surprisingly good, but maybe not premier players. So that's a shift. That's a shift that's happening. The second shift that's happening is, think about under Brian Flores with Chris Greer as the GM. They were totally anti anybody even above 25 years old, right? Like they were ridiculously young oriented on under Brian Flores, and when Chris Greer as the general manager. They were all about draft picks. They were all about young players, everything. Well, here comes Mike McDaniel. He comes from the Shanahan tree, and that approach has always been more about veterans, frankly. They have kind of, a little bit of an off stance with respect to the young players and the guys. Look at Eric Ezekanma. He had a dominating preseason, but the guy can't even be active in a game, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and
that's the young player thing with them.
Yeah, and Wells Walker's adamant about that, and he kind of revealed it on one of his availabilities when he said, if a guy can't run 12 yards when we're asking him to run 12 yards on a dig consistently, then he just won't be out there at all. Because 14 is not 12 and 9 is not 12.
And that's a thing. If you look at the 49ers under Kyle Shanahan, they've brought in veterans, right? They've brought in veterans. They respect age. It gets them bit because of the injury bug sometimes. But it is an approach. It is a different philosophy, and Chris Greer has adapted to it. We always call him the ultimate survivor. Well, you get to be the ultimate survivor because you adapt, right? And I think that this represents a change. I mean, not that Bradley Chubb is old, right? He's 26.
Yeah.
Right. But this does represent. But the fact that they're emptying out, they already lost a first round pick because of the shenanigans with Steve Ross and the tampering. Right.
That's one word. That's one.
And what had we been told? Like, what had we been told previously? We were like, well, since especially after we lost that first round pick, those first round picks next year, or that first round pick next year, off limits, right? Well, that was the old approach. Now I mean, we joke about it because it's the it's the meme with the Rams and go back into basketball. It's fuck them picks.
Yeah.
And that's a change. That is a change. That is a real change that has happened. And and I think it's remarkable.
Yeah, and let me say this about we could put a bow on this Bradley Chubb thing. And I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about him even more on Thursday because it looks like he's going to suit up on Sunday. He's going to play.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then we'll move on to Jeff Wilson very quickly before we talk about the game this past Sunday. But let me say this last thing about Bradley Chubb. They're obviously going to change the system. And I said this earlier. I did a Dolphins on 5 with David Eversole. And I said, this is about Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. You can't blitz those guys. And blitzing those guys has proven to be suicidal. Okay. If you watch the Packers play against Josh Allen this past Sunday night, they had some success. Josh Allen had probably his worst game of the season against the Packers. They still won anyway because their defense is really good and they get timely big plays from that passing game. But you're gonna have to play softer coverages and you're gonna have to get to them with 4 and 5. And you have to be strong on the edge. I think this kind of signals gone is manufacturing pass rushes with these 0 blitz looks and sending 6 and 7, sending nano blitzes, sending slot blitzes. I think all of that is gone. I think I'm going to try to get there with 4 and with 5.
I don't know. I think maybe a little bit. Let's call it gone, but not forgotten.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a certain identity that they'll always keep.
Well, they play some slapdick quarterbacks. They're gonna send the house.
Yeah.
Out.
So I think definitely gone but not forgotten. I don't think it's going to be gone, but you've certainly seen them step off the gas a little bit and look to try and protect the secondary because you have to at this point. You've had Xavier Howard kind of in and out. and also banged up, hurt with groin issues, and sometimes going out there and playing a half that you're like, that's as bad a half as I've ever seen him play.
Mhm.
And then some other times, going out there and just really, really killing it. You've got him, you got Nick Needham, he was struggling a little bit. He was struggling a little bit even before he got hurt. You got guys like Tater Coho and Keon Crossan playing. You got Noah Igbenogany forced into action. That's clearly been up and down. Justin Bethel just in off the street. I mean, it's really bad back there. And now Brandon Jones is out. Not that he was particularly great in coverage anyway. And so these guys needed to be protected. And so you've seen them step off the gas. And now this really is emblematic of that, I guess that trend, and I think that's what you're going to see more of is stepping off the gas a little bit. But this defense is always, I say gone, but not forgotten, because this defense is always situational. Like the identity of this defense is situational. And that's what they're all about. And that's what they're trying to do is they're really trying to get the offense into a situation in which the defense can know or feel comfortable that they know what's coming. And that's when they make a big play. They make a big play to get off the field. They make a big turnover, something along those lines. I mean, we call it bend don't break, but it's really about situation hunting, because they're looking to corner you. They're looking to corner you into something that they've already identified on film that they know what's going to happen, and then they're going to call the right defense for it, or they're going to show because they know the tendency the individual players are going to capitalize on it. That's what they're going for, and so it's not going to be forgotten. The whole blitz approach, the zero looks, that's going to be in there. I think it's ingrained in their DNA. I just think that they're going to back off it a little bit. And you're right. If you're trying to beat the very best players and quarterbacks in the NFL, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that with that approach. And I think they've known that. I think they've come to terms with that idea.
Yeah. By the way, I heard a stat, and I'll repeat it after the break. But before we go to the break, one last thing: they made a trade for Jeff Wilson, and I think this is a savvy trade. Okay, you read the room. Christian McCaffrey's getting all the carries. Jeff Wilson was pretty active in the offense before Christian McCaffrey arrived. Last week, Christian McCaffrey had 18 carries. Jeff Wilson had 4. That kind of tells you all you needed to know. They swap out Chase Edmonds. That's something we talked about on the last podcast. I thought, man, is it time to swap out Chase Edmonds? I guess they decided, yes, it is time to swap out Chase Edmonds. They save a little money right there. And they put in a guy who knows the system, who Mike McDaniel worked with, and you can't get a better fit as the number 2 back behind Raheem Mostert. Another great trade. I think this is very fine work by Chris Greer at the deadline.
Very fine work. Sort of a no-brainer, I think, once the Christian McCaffrey thing. I know we were talking about, like, for instance, Kareem Hunt, which I think didn't happen. And I get the sense that the Browns knew that it wasn't going to happen, because if you watch the way that Kareem Hunt was used in the game last night, that didn't look to me like a player that was about to be, traded. I think they kind of knew. I think they would like to trade him, but you've alluded to it before.
Yeah,
his contract demands might be
unrealistic,
super unrealistic. So we are looking at a rental player, and so I think that's probably, yes, he would have fit well. He knows Tyreek Hill. There were lots of things in favor of a Kareem Hunt, but the no-brainer with Jeff Wilson was because of the way that he knows the system. And what I trust about this move is the fact that Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer have been very discreet about which players they pull from the 49ers, which players that Mike McDaniel has experience coaching, right? which players they pull from the 49ers back in Mike McDaniel's history onto the Dolphins offense. If you think about it, usually when there's a new staff, there's a fair bit of those players, right? There, you bring over lots of players that that and are familiar with and stuff like that. Well, the Dolphins only brought in Trent Sherfield, River Craycraft, and Raheem Mostert, basically, and so Raheem Mostert, you remember Raheem Mostert was sort of an add-on acquisition. It came very late in the process, in the signing process. It was sort of an add-on, whereas Chase Edmonds was like the headliner, right? So, and Trent Sherfield and River Craycraft were, I mean, for all intents and purposes, us as fans were looking at that like, they're probably not even going to make the roster, But look at what those guys have contributed.
Sherfield looks like a Dolphin lifer.
Yeah, he is. He looks like a legitimate number 3 wide receiver is what he looks like, especially in the system. And that was something, and River Craycraft made the team. And when he's played, he's played well for us. He's contributed. You can see why he's there, right? And Raheem Mostert, he wasn't supposed to be RB1, but he is. He's not only RB1, but he's performing really well. And if he stays healthy, the Dolphins have a legitimate reason to believe that they might have one of the better running backs in the NFL. So they've shown they haven't just wholesale bought a bunch of guys that Mike McDaniel has experience with. They haven't. They've shown discretion, and they picked out the guys that are worth it. And so when you see them pick out a Jeff Wilson, that's really encouraging because, like I said, they're not just, he used to play for him. So yeah, let's go ahead and do it. They're not doing it. So I think that's one reason to be kind of high on Jeff Wilson. But the other reason is for exactly the reason that Raheem Mostert ended up rising to the top over Chase Edmonds in the first place, which is that this system is difficult. It's difficult to get a beat under. I think I've heard coaches say that it can take 2 years, to really get it. So it's not you can't just come in. I've flagged Chase Edmonds before the season even started when I was talking about it on Twitter because I was like, listen, this system is difficult, and Chase Edmonds is coming from a complete other offense, a complete other pro offense where he made his name, doing different things. And now he's trying to do things, completely different things here. And this might not go well. It seems like the only young players that people in this system or that coaches in this system seem to appreciate are at running back. They seem to like rookie running backs for some reason. But yeah, that in terms of the veterans, it's some veterans are going to get it. Some veterans are really not. And it started to look like Chase Edmonds was becoming one of those guys that's just not going to get it. And so now they've gotten 2 players. They've got a nice 1-2 punch in Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson that have shown they've gotten it in this system. And that's a home run. I know it's a small move. I want to be humble about it. Listen, we're not, we didn't just get Adrian Peterson or something like that. But this is a move that, from a rationality standpoint, is a home run.
Yeah, and just to put a bow on it, Kareem Hunt would be here if he didn't have ridiculous contract demands. I revealed this on OnlyFans. He wants something in the line of what Joe Mixon got a year ago, and I was thinking to myself, "Oh, that's all? No, Joe Mixon doesn't make that much money." I looked up his contract; it's ridiculous.
Well, and the last thing I'll say about the trade, though, the trades of the day, is Mike Gesicki is still here, right? Cedric Wilson is still here. Cedric Wilson is also a guy that seems to not be getting it in this system, right? And Mike Gesicki is a guy that, if he's not getting it in this system, I kind of have issue with just blanket saying that, because he produces we see his value in games like the Detroit game, which we'll talk about.
Mm.
They have to open up. They have to go 11 personnel. They have to get more wide receivers on the field. They have to pass the ball. Suddenly, this guy is valuable because he's taking up attention. He's keeping Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle able to get the ball the way that they do, and then he's contributing in the red zone. He's contributing in the end zone the way that he does. You see that value in that situation. Well, they kept him, but that wasn't necessarily going to be the case because I was told, and this was, frankly, about 40 minutes before the trade got announced. I was told that the Dolphins were frustrated because they did think that they had a deal in place with the Denver Broncos that involved Bradley Chubb, and also, trading Mike Gesicki to them for a day 2 pick plus Jerry Jeudy.
Mm-hmm.
And Chase Edmonds. We would still be giving Chase Edmonds along with Mike Gesicki. So there was kind of an iffy thing there. They were definitely hearing offers on Mike Gesicki, but they were very disciplined on the asking price. The Minnesota Vikings, for example, balked at it at the asking price for Mike Gesicki, and they ended up trading, I believe it was like a 3rd round equivalent for TJ Hawkinson instead. And so I think that they had in mind that they were going to kind of kill 2 birds in one stone with getting Bradley Chubb for a 1st round pick plus Chase Edmonds, but then also getting a day 2 pick or 2nd round pick for Mike Gesicki, or maybe that 2nd round pick would have been a 3rd round pick if they were able to pull Jerry Jeudy into it. And then that they got frustrated. They thought they had that they thought they were close to the finish line on that, and then it looked like it wasn't going to happen. So they just pivoted, got rid of the whole Gesicki and Jeudy and day 2 pick aspect of it. And it was, this is what I had been told. About 30, 40 minutes before it finally happened. And the people that were telling me this were flagging me and saying, hey, Chase Edmonds is part of this, and which he did end up being. So the price ended up being right around where I was told. It's just that they dropped some aspects of it. But Mike Gesicki is still here. So, we talk about Mike McDaniel talks about being versatile, and in his post-game speech in the locker room, he talks about how we win in multiple ways, right? Mm-hmm. That we can win in a defensive performance like we did against the Steelers. We can win in a shootout like we did with the Ravens and like we did with the Lions. Well, in those shootouts, you're going to be glad you had Mike Gesicki. Yeah. So, and you're also going to hopefully be glad that you had Bradley Chubb. But I think that's interesting to me in itself because, yeah, they could have monetized him. They could have monetized him and gotten a draft pick for it. But they're kind of saying, you know what? We got a 5-0 quarterback who is like 12-1 in his last 13 games.
Yes.
If not now, when?
Yeah.
And that's what it is. That's the bottom line. If not now, when? We are chips all in, and that's what this signifies.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna go to break, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about that game on Sunday, we'll have plenty to talk about. But before we do, these words. Let me tell you about Liquid Death. You've seen those little tall boy cans, right? They look like beer cans. They have the really great logo that says Liquid Death. Well, it's not beer. It's not an alcoholic beverage. It's actually mountain spring water from the Alps. My favorite flavor is Bury It Alive. Okay? It's absolutely delicious. It's unlike some of those other waters you've tried out there, those flavored waters. They're not as good. They just really aren't. They just don't taste good. These are not only refreshing, but they're cold. And especially since it's in a can, you put it in a cooler with ice. Something I like to do is I'll put 1 Liquid Death can for every 6 beers in the cooler, just to break it up a little bit. So yeah, Liquid Death. It kills your thirst, and infinitely recyclable cans are environmentally friendly. Liquid Death also donates 10% of the profits from every can sold to help kill plastic pollution. Go get Liquid Death at your local Publix, the Fresh Market, or Whole Foods Market, or find a Liquid Death retailer near you with their store locator tool at liquiddeath.com/3. That's THREE. That's our dedicated website, by the way. Follow Liquid Death on social media, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. Use the hashtags murder your thirst and hashtag death to plastic. Liquid death. And we're back. And yeah, that was exciting stuff. Exciting stuff at the trade deadline. But we're going to talk about this game on Sunday. Chris, I was watching. What was the last time you watched? Pardon the interruption, which is ESPN's signature debate show. It's been going now for 30 years. What was the last time you saw that? Those are like the deans of the media.
Can I be honest? Can I be honest here?
Oh, Jesus. Don't tell me you've never seen the show or you didn't know it existed.
You say it's been on for 30 years?
Yes.
I've probably the last time I watched it with any amount of interest whatsoever was 20 years ago. And I'm not even kidding.
Well, Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon, I think they're going to die on that job, by the way. One day we're just going to tune in and there's not going to be anybody on the screen. And we're like, where are these guys? Oh, they died.
You won't notice.
They say, oh, they died. We're going to have to put 2 new guys in here because they died right on the job. Well, they had a segment yesterday. Okay. Would you be surprised? They had a segment talking about who is the NFL MVP right now? Who are your NFL MVP candidates? Okay. And they both agreed on this, by the way. They had the number 1 candidate, Patrick Mahomes. That's understandable.
Okay.
Yeah. Number 2 candidate, Josh Allen. Extremely understandable. In fact, in my opinion, he's probably the favorite right now. Best player on the best team. Usually that's how it works, right? And number 3, Tua Tagovailoa.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When I heard that, first of all, I thought I had a stroke. I was like, I heard.
Yeah, I would too.
They said Jalen Hurts or something like that, and I heard Tua, which means I gotta go see a neurologist because now I'm hearing like different words through my ears, right? But no, yes, that's exactly what they said. And they said, well, if he overtakes Buffalo, I could see giving him the MVP. And I'm thinking to myself, holy shit. We've done all of it. We've come a long way in 2 months.
We've come a very long way.
Okay. What a game on Sunday. First of all, I'll say how I experience it, because usually that's how we start these things off. I experienced that game sitting there thinking to myself, oh, great. The Detroit Lions get healthy, and the Detroit Lions revert to the number 1 offense in the NFL, which they were when they were healthy. They got it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? That's his name.
That's right.
Who's a star, by the way. They get TJ Hawkinson back, and they get DeAndre Swift back. They get Penny Sewell back, and they're high-powered because they scored on every single drive in the first half. We couldn't get off the field. I'm watching it, and I'm like, you know what? But our offense is so good. We're going to keep pace. We're going to need a turnover here. Well, it turns out we didn't even need a turnover because we didn't get a turnover. It was just our offense was unstoppable.
Yeah. And we got a few stops. A few stops on defense.
Yeah, just enough.
Just enough.
Mostly due to stupid penalties. But 1-6, well, at the time it was 1-5, but 1-5 is gonna 1-5. You know what I mean? 1-5 is gonna make a stupid, they're gonna make a stupid mistake that's gonna, crack the door open for you a little bit. The mark of a good team is that when a bad team cracks the door open a little bit, you come barging in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
And that's exactly what Miami did. I thought this was his finest game. I understand he threw for 1 billion yards against Baltimore, but this was surgical. This was perfect, and not only was it perfect, it was actually perfect in as in stats. It was perfect. He had a perfect passer rating. The man is perfect against man coverage this season. The only quarterback that is perfect in passer rating against man coverage this season. I don't think he could play any better because no quarterback can play any better. This was as good as you can play as a quarterback. Your thoughts?
That's a tough one because, the Baltimore game was just so ridiculous in terms of the comeback in that fourth quarter of that game. The amount, just the onslaught that happened.
Yeah, but the two YOLO picks, those are
I know, I
huge
know, and I
demerits.
realize that we're not talking about. This is probably the game that you would say he played, pretty much all four quarters, and it was, you give that up, but just the overall impact of the quality opponent that was, and the situation that was to me, that's still his best. That's still his best is the Baltimore game. Now he played all four quarters this game, and he did really well. I mean, that's understating it. But I think the Baltimore game was still better for me because it was, the Baltimore game. The Baltimore game will make you live in legend.
Mm-hmm.
This game is just you gotta win against a 1-5 team.
Yeah.
Like this win, the great quarterbacks have, 100 of these. Like
Yeah.
well, not maybe not 100. I don't know, but like
Couple
you know what I
dozen.
mean. No,
Maybe
they
a
they
dozen.
got
A
they got
dozen.
they got dozens of these,
About a
right?
dozen. I looked it up.
Yeah,
And Aaron Rodgers has done this, I believe, 9 times in his career. So
yeah,
yeah, roughly a dozen.
yeah. I mean, and against a porous defense who fired the defensive backs coach the very next day, and like great great quarterbacks have these games against this quality of an opponent, and they have them with a fair, like, it's not totally unheard of at all. They have them a lot. The Baltimore game, the situation and circumstances in that game, I don't remember that ever happening.
Yeah.
And because I didn't necessarily live through Dan Marino's heyday in the early '80s, but I'm just saying, like, that to me, that's a legendary performance. Whereas this is, hey, the really good quarterbacks have days like this, and I think that he had a day like this, and that's great. But it was really interesting also from the standpoint of Mike McDaniels as a play caller too.
Mm-hmm.
I should say Mike McDaniel, without the S. But him as a play caller, I think it's interesting because he got on one. He was on one at the end of that Baltimore game. He could do no wrong as a play caller, right?
Well, they even called the play called "fuck it."
Yeah, and exactly, and we hadn't really necessarily seen that again in the other games. We saw generally a well-structured offense, fairly well called during the game. But he got on one again against the Lions. And so this is important both from Tua's standpoint, but also from Mike McDaniel, his standpoint as a play caller and head coach. And so it was very encouraging. I think that it was a very entertaining game to watch. You watch Tua execute in this game, and you take a step back and you realize, you have to check yourself, because you're like, quarterbacks miss, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they do miss, right? But you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it because we expect him to hit every single pass because he can.
Yeah, no, and you know what's really spoiling us, and I keep telling people, pay attention, okay, and enjoy this, because this is not normal. His third down numbers are, that's not football, okay?
No,
That's Madden on easy, okay?
yeah,
It's his third down numbers are ridiculous. I'm not going to repeat them here because I want everybody to go look them up. Let's just say that if I repeated them on here, you would say that I'm spreading misinformation on this podcast. Okay?
Well, I'll say one of the numbers, which is that he has 143 passer rating on third down right now. And if you think that's ridiculous, then the fact that his fourth down passer rating is a perfect 158.3 is, well, although to be fair, that's two passes.
Yeah,
but
and I'll say this, because somebody, Big O, when he did his post game, he was like, "This reminded me of Marino." The defense shitting the bed, and then the quarterback not giving a crap and winning anyway.
Yep,
You know what I mean?
exactly. And I think that the third down, it's interesting because I was just talking with somebody earlier about this on third down. And I'm not allowed to say who. But I was just talking to somebody earlier about this, and that is one area of significant improvement for him in the on the field, statistically, and just even film wise. He was not this on third down in 2021, nor was he this on third down in 2020, his rookie year. He was not even close, really. He was actually very average on third down in those years. And if I had to pick out some areas where because I've been talking about this fourth quarter thing with him forever, right? That's because he's always been this. He's always been this in the fourth quarter. He's always been a high performer in the fourth quarter. I've been talking about his red zone prowess forever because he's always been this in the red zone. Even right straight back to his rookie year. He's always been a high performer in the red zone. Always been a high performer in the fourth quarter. He has not been a high performer in the third down and late downs or obvious passing situations and such. That is a this year phenomenon. That happened this year. And actually, because we talk all the time, and it's really become such a hot controversy comparing him with guys like Joe Burrow and especially Justin Herbert, because it seems like such a sore spot. To give Justin Herbert some credit, he is good on third down and has been. Rookie year, second year, 2020 and 21, he's been good on. He's kind of ho hum this year on third, fourth down this year. Justin Herbert is, but he does have a history of being really, really good on third, fourth down. This is kind of a new thing for Tua, and it's really encouraging because you want him to. This is the controversy, right? This is
the problem with Justin Herbert.
Did we just get Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Mike McDaniel, and that's really what's changed? Tua hasn't changed. No, you want to know that Tua has changed too.
Yes.
And because it has to be both of those things. It has to be, one, yes, he was always a good player. Maybe people didn't always recognize it, but two, yes, he is ascending. He's still getting better, because he's still got some ways to go before he's, in that category with the Drew Brees and such. So I think that's a discrete area you'd look at and say he is different this year on those downs, and he is legitimately different on third down and fourth down.
Yeah, the problem with Justin Herbert, and that's what and I keep saying this, I think the debate is still open. It'll be open for years, okay?
It will.
Because he's really, really good. And I think the debate could still be open with Joe Burrow. He hasn't played well. And now that he doesn't have, Jamar Chase. By the way, did you know that they've only played 20 snaps without each other since last year?
Really?
Yes.
Well, I mean, how many going back to LSU?
Yeah, which means that, Zach Taylor, he keeps those guys, that guy on the field because for only missing 20 snaps, because they were saying, because Joe Burrow was having a pretty bad game yesterday. And they were saying, maybe this is getting to him because he's only played 20 snaps without Jamar Chase on the field since last year. So, Justin Herbert is that house guest that brings you a really expensive bottle of whiskey, a couple of really good cigars, sits down, has a great conversation with you, breaks out a guitar, plays a couple of tunes, but at the end of the night, he hits on your wife. You know what I mean? And you're like, you know what? Get the hell out of here. All right. Justin Herbert just has very public and very, loud, bad moments, let's just say. Okay.
Yeah.
Think about it. He was dueling with Patrick Mahomes. He wasn't playing all that great, but he was dueling and he was driving them down for the game winner. Pick six, 88 yards. That's a thud. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it does happen. And he's not had nearly the same prowess, obviously, in late game situations, in fourth quarter situations as Tua has, even as, going back to Tua as a rookie, as a sophomore, so on. but you do have to give credit for him. He's been excellent and I say excellent. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna downplay. He had been in his career excellent on third, fourth down. Justin Herbert had. But yeah, I mean, it's great to see. It's great to see the improvement though. From Tua, and that's what you do want to see. You don't want to be afraid of the idea that he's actually, performed better, because I think, some people, and we look at it, the people that just crushed him incessantly, right, Tua, and did so unfairly, in a lot of ways. Those people are kind of, because of the whole cognitive dissonance thing. They're saying, well, no, we weren't wrong. Tua was that bad. He's just totally different this year. He's just totally new player.
Yeah, well, right now on ESPN Live, Dan Orlovsky and Ryan Clark are going over what they call Tua Tagovailoa's obnoxious Detroit tape.
Well, I mean, but yeah, there's people that are going to want to say, well, we weren't wrong. He was just that bad, and now he's just a completely different player. Well, I mean, he is and he isn't. You want it to be both. You want it to be that you were wrong. He was never that bad. He was always good, pretty good. But also he is an ascending player, getting better every single year. And here's what we can point to and say, this is one area where he literally just got better. Yeah. And so, but you want that. You don't want to run from that. So I think that, it's encouraging. I think this game was very emblematic of what we were all hoped for with Tua Tagovailoa this year. But at the same time, what's that defense going to be going forward? Because, even though they quote unquote shut out the Lions in the second half, we're talking about 3 drives.
It was just that's not a real sample size. Like I was thinking, man, look, and I've dug into it a little bit. I promised some people on Twitter I was going to dig into it, and I have, just cursory, because I was very busy today. They didn't do many things differently. Okay?
Yeah, and it was 3 drives, and one of those drives did go a distance, and it ended on downs because of the scoreboard pressure. The scoreboard situational pressure dictated that they were going to have to go for it on fourth down, and in an unlikely situation, and they came up short on that. So I mean, that's 3 drives, and one of them actually they got rolling, but the drive ended because of scoreboard pressure. That doesn't tell me that they got a handle on this. That doesn't tell me that. So well, and hence what happened today.
By the way, Andy Slater, you guys know him on Twitter. He has breaking news. There's updated. The odds are actually pulled from everywhere, but there's updated airfare rates from American, Spirit, and Frontier from South Florida to Phoenix for Super Bowl weekend. And they are now double. Okay.
Really?
So, yeah. So do they? American is $968 for coach. Okay, up from $412. Actually, it's more than double. Okay, that's 130%. So yeah. So the airlines So the airlines watch ESPN Live. They watch NFL Network, and they have Twitter accounts, right? And they're like, all right, let's rob all these people.
Yeah. Immediate reaction.
Yeah,
but that's what happened today, though, isn't it? Like,
yes.
you have to assume that the Dolphins looked at that Detroit Lions tape too, and they're not necessarily sitting there saying, "Well, we shut them out in the second half."
Yeah. That's not enough. That's not enough.
Yeah.
I take solace in one thing: that Detroit offense, when healthy, when it hasn't been healthy, it's been absolute garbage. Because the last 2 weeks, it was basically the last 2 weeks were just Jared Goff and a bunch of Jags and Williams. That was it. That was the entire offense. They got healthy for us, and they turned into the team that they were the first 4 weeks, where they were averaging 33 points a game and 465 yards.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were a powerful offense before, and they looked
so I'll
like
take solace in that. right? Like, hopefully I'm not fooling myself, right? Hopefully we played a high-powered offense and held them to 27 points, which is okay, you know?
At home, they were in their own stadium,
Yeah, you
on
know?
their own turf. That counts for something.
Yeah, and at
Um,
1-6, season's over. But at 2-5, you can see the glimmer. We're like, you know what? A little
Mhm.
win streak, and we're at 500, and we're back in this thing, especially in the NFC. Which, God, that that conference is bad. You know.
Mhm.
Well, the Packers are 3-5. Like,
Sure.
like really,
Hey, but we play them.
yeah, which is well, it's unfortunate. By the way, not to do Packer talk, their GM is incompetent. You can't have Aaron Rodgers and then just give him that poo-poo platter of wide receivers that he had out there against the Buffalo Bills, and he's still willing them.
Well,
And they have a
they
sledgehammer
didn't
run
get
game.
any help for him today either, did they?
No, they have a sledgehammer running game, a really good offensive line. Zach Tom played left guard, by the way. And it looks like he might settle there at left guard. He got overpowered by Jordan Phillips and Ed Oliver a couple of times, but Zach Tom is kind of light. Like, I had no idea he was only 290 pounds.
Oh yeah, he's definitely he's got a light seat.
Yeah, but he's fine. Like, he's like, you can see going forward, he's going to be a good player. They have a really good offensive line, an all-time quarterback, a great running game, and man, that defense is for real. That secondary, not only were they number one against the pass, but they proved it. They shut down Josh Allen for the most part. Picked him off twice. He also had 3 near almost interceptions, by the way, for those who track that.
Yeah.
But so that Packer team is like, yeah, go win a Super Bowl. But you can't win a Super Bowl when there's guys running around out there that I have no idea who the hell they were as wide receivers. And now they lost another one in Christian Watson, who's going to be injured for the foreseeable future. He took a pretty bad concussion, but what are you going to do? That's just bad work. Our GM did not do bad work. Our GM is giving every possible weapon you can give to Tua Tagovailoa to see him succeed, and it's working. All right, let's move on to some players in this game because there's just so much we could talk about, this snap and that snap and this drive and that drive. Brandon Shell's the right tackle going forward, right?
I'm going to caution against that. I'm going to caution against that because I think that I appreciate what he gave in this game. I think this is probably his best game that he's played for us. I think that, prior to this game, you would describe his play as surprisingly okay. I would not have said good by any means. They invested a lot of time and a lot of, in Austin Jackson playing that right tackle position all through camp. There was a reason they did it. They were patient while he, went through his lumps learning the new position. He got better and better every single week. I can't believe I'm saying this because I am king among the Austin Jackson haters. But they did put a lot into it. And honestly, I'm going to be honest, that first game that he played before he got hurt, that was the best I've seen him. That was the best I've seen him play. So, I think that I would caution against the idea. He's not going to play this week. He's back on the roster, on the active roster, but he's not going to play this week.
But that's a signal that he's, that Austin Jackson his return is imminent.
Yeah, but let the season play out because you know what? Hey, Brandon Shell had a good game this week. What's he going to do next week? That's the question.
Well, we had the
really Greg to ask.
Yeah, we had the Greg Little experience. Greg Little was as good. Forget about Terron Armstead because Terron Armstead is just he's ridiculous. He's a ridiculous player. By the way,
Connor Williams is getting there too.
Yeah, Connor Williams is headed to the Pro Bowl as well. He's really, really good as a center. That was a good move. Who would have thunk it? These guys knew what the hell they were doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, who would have thunk it?
Yeah, but look, keep Terron Armstead off of this conversation. Greg Little might have had the best game by a Dolphin tackle this year against the Ravens in week 2. And they were throwing the kitchen sink at him. So
what happened with Greg Little? Then what happened? And then what happened?
Exactly. He took an injury and it was a slow fade until an absolute disaster game against the Jets, and even worse game the following week against the Vikings. So yeah, Greg Little, not for long. He's best at his role, which is break glass in case of emergency for one game at left tackle or right tackle, and that's it.
But he's always getting hurt, and he doesn't play particularly well when he does. And I think that's the thing. So Brandon Shell, it's gonna be the same thing to watch for. You never know. He's gonna take some minor little nick, and then he's gonna get blown up several times in a game, and you're gonna be like, Jesus Christ, I can't wait till we get Austin Jackson back. And I can't believe we actually said that either.
Yeah.
So I think that I would caution against this idea. Oh, it's set and forget now. We got Brandon Shell. There's a reason he was available as late as he was. So, but I do think he's making a case for it. I think that every week is another opportunity for him to seal that. But I think that right now, I'd say when Austin Jackson gets healthy, they're going to toss him back in for a little, just to see. They have to see. They have to see. And a lot of people are saying, well, let's move to left guard because Liam Eichenberg just went down hurt. Well, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they keep it a little bit more simple with the offensive line now. I don't think they're just going to move guys all over the place the way that they used to and do a disservice to the player. He's been focusing on right tackle this entire time. Suddenly he's going to play left guard again. Meanwhile, the guy that has been focusing on left guard and right guard is Robert Jones, as being the swing, sort of the swing guard backup. And he got in there and he played all right in the end of the game. So I think that, that's the plan going forward at left guard is probably Robert Jones. And then somebody's going to have to, just like, Brandon Shell's at right tackle, somebody's going to have to play their way out of that probably, just by being unacceptable. But I think that that's probably the plan for the time being is Robert Hunt at left guard. And then I think they're going to mix in some Austin Jackson and see, and they have to find out, they put a lot of investment into it. Brandon Shell is here for 1 year. Austin Jackson could be here for more. So I think that we're going to find out. It's a long season. And then we'll see. Hopefully, but either way, the guy that I'm hoping, you just hope that Teron Armstead stays healthy because he makes such a difference. So
he makes a massive difference. Aiden Hutchinson is a stud. I wasn't a big fan. I was like, because I like to compare them to each other. All the big pass rushing prospects that have come out. The one I liked the best was Nick Bosa. He's an absolute monster. His brother Joey Bosa is fine too, but kind of expensive for a guy that always runs out of the game with a hamstring injury every once in a while. But and Myles Garrett is a guy that I looked at and I said, okay, yeah, he's good, but is he going to be all that great? Well, he's ridiculous. Okay, but Nick Bosa is the one that I really liked out of all of them. Aiden Hutchinson, I thought, okay, I could see why he's a high draft pick, but I just don't think he's going to be, one of these all-world guys. He's kind of an all-world guy. Teron Armstead had him in his pocket, put him in a nice little box with a bow on it, and then, kicked it down the stairs.
Yeah, I actually liked Aiden Hutchinson a lot. So,
okay. Good. Like if you had to rank all those guys, not in the class of Myles Garrett and not as players, because Myles Garrett and Nick Bosa, they're defensive player of the year candidates. I'm talking about as prospects, not in their class or in their class as prospects.
Aiden Hutchinson was absolutely in their class.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
To my eyes. So yeah, I think that he was in their class. I think it was impressive. This is a reason why Brandon Shell had an impressive game too, is because it wasn't just Teron Armstead against him, against Aiden Hutchinson in this game.
We talked about it in our preview. That I looked at Detroit, defensive tape, which is wow.
Yeah.
Which is odd. Look, if you look at the Lions play on defense, look, I like Alex Anzalone. I think he's a good player. That Malcolm Rodriguez kid, like, first of all, he had a monster game against the Dolphins. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah,
he had a sack. He forced a fumble on the hit, I believe. And he had like a pile of tackles. Alex Anzalone, him, Aiden Hutchinson. They have a couple of nice players. Jeff Okudah is not hopeless. Okay. He's just not as advertised. You know, he was advertised as one of the best cornerback prospects coming out in ages, and he's just not that. But he's a good NFL cornerback. What they have on the other side is absolutely atrocious.
Yeah.
But watching them on film, they like to rush Aiden Hutchinson as a right defensive end consistently over and over and over again. And I told Simon, look, if they do that against the Dolphins, they're wasting him because he's not going to have any hope against Teron Armstead.
Yeah, they shouldn't have. They shouldn't have. I think you're right. And you're right that they did it. You know, he was on that side. He was on that side, I think, 25 times on Teron Armstead's side. And you know, he should have probably just been exclusively over Brandon Shell and been trying him all game long. But yeah, I mean, but still impressive for Shell, you know, because what are we talking about? We're talking about something like 33 snaps or something like that he was on the left side. He was on that, you know, Brandon Shell's side. So that's still an impressive day that he had. So you know, we'll see going forward.
Yeah, and the Dolphins got the Lions to fire their defensive backs coach, which is I always found that to be absolutely.
I always like that. And you know, it seems like we've had some past teams that were good at doing that. That were good at getting the other team to bench players or fire coaches and stuff like that. I've definitely seen that happen in the past, and it's good to get back to that. It's good to get back to that.
Yes, I completely agree. I absolutely love stuff like that. One last thing, let's talk about Braylon Sanders a little bit because, you know, I guess Eric Ezukama, we're not going to see him all year. So I ended up being right. I was wrong for preseason, but I was absolutely right in camp. Okay. Because if you remember, I said this is going to be a redshirt year. We will not see him play a single snap in the regular season. Well, I think I'm going to be right. Okay.
You might weirdly be right about, you know, even though he was a stud in the preseason, but they just, you know, hey, they're not fucking around with these young kids and teaching them, which is, you know, encouraging.
And let me tell you, you're gonna have to tell you, and we could close with this. And I love to hear your opinion on it. I absolutely loved what Mike McDaniel said after the game about what happened to Braylon Sanders. Of course, he caught an RPO slant, tried to make a move, got hit, fumbled. The fumble, you know, ended up leading to points as the Lions drove the length of the field for a touchdown. And he was asked, what do you tell a player like that? And Mike McDaniel said, sometimes the best thing to say to a player is nothing.
Yeah.
And it's the truth. And he said, look, and I really do believe in this, okay? You can either go over there and just scream at his face and make him really feel shitty, right? Or you could just, you know, you understand he's not trying to fumble. You know what I mean? He's not betting on the Lions, okay?
No, you're right. You're right.
Like, he's trying to make that play. He's trying to run over a safety and score a touchdown there if possible. Like in his dream of dreams, okay, when he went to bed Saturday night, he was thinking, you know what, I'm going to catch that RPO. Because I'm pretty sure that he had a package. Braylon Sanders knew what routes he was possibly running. And he probably thought, okay, if I'm on the left side of the formation and this is an RPO, Tua might come to me. So he's thinking about this. You know he feels bad already. You know, so you're gonna go over there and make sure he feels a little worse.
Well, you know when you actually do go and say something is you say something when a guy lines up offsides.
Yeah, usually what you say is, bro, fucking fix this.
Yeah, exactly. When a guy lines up offsides, like time after snap after snap after snap, or multiple guys do, that's when you go up and say something. You don't go up and say something in Braylon Sanders' situation. And you know, one of those culprits, by the way, was Melvin Ingram, who may have effectively just been replaced by Bradley Chubb. So you know, that's something. But also, you know, I mean, so Braylon Sanders, yeah, he messed up on his very first catch of his first NFL game, you know, and so that's hopefully just going to be a story that he gets to tell someday that doesn't matter because he has a good career and all that. But, Yeah, you don't go and say anything. I'll close with this though. Did you know this? This is something that's happening right now. Did you know that Brandon Jones's brother-in-law is Bradley Chubb?
You kidding?
I'm not kidding. Bradley Chubb is the brother of Brandon Jones's wife. That's
wow.
Yeah. That's out on Twitter. That's Bobby. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I always thought it was Bobby's house, but it's Bobby Shoes. I don't know, but he says that he's and I saw earlier, like immediately, Brandon Jones had a Twitter reaction to this trade.
Yeah,
he's like, wow, let's go get this. But
by the way, I love the Tyreek Hill Twitter reaction. I also love that Tyreek Hill spends his entire off day gaming.
Yeah, I know.
On Twitch.
Well, he's got to rest, man. I'll tell you, watching him go weekend, he is just. I mean, I don't want to get into it too heavily, but he is a different kind of good. I mean, like, I know that they talk about like he and Jalen Waddle. I think James Lofton during the game said something like he said something cute, like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are 1A and 1A.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's cute and all that, but to me, Jalen Waddle is like Odell Beckham good. And right now, I don't know if he'll come back down to earth, whatever. But for these 8 games, Tyreek Hill has been Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson good. Yes. Like that's the level he's been at. Now I don't know if he's going to continue that for forever or whatever, but he is that level, and it's incredible to watch it. And hopefully, so go play fucking video games during your off days, please. Don't do anything. Don't get up off the chair. Like, just bubble wrap yourself. I don't even do whatever you gotta do to just stay healthy. That's all I keep thinking.
Yeah,
I go healthy.
I go back to that tweet that I put out in the off season in March when they acquired Tyreek Hill. I put up the stats that Mark Duper and Mark Clayton had in 1984. And then in the bottom, I said Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill have work to do. Well, they had 26 touchdowns between them and 2,600 yards between them. Okay. Yeah. Clayton had 1,300 and Duper had 1,300 as well. Both of them, 1,300 and change, both of them. Tyreek Hill is on pace for 2,000 yards. Jalen Waddle is on pace for 1,600 yards.
Yep.
All right. We'll close right there. The next time we talk to you, we'll talk Bears, Dolphins. By the way, maybe the weather's not going to be all that great. 60 degrees, but maybe rain? Interesting. Narratives. Remember those. All right. We'll talk to you on Thursday.
Thanks for listening to 3 Yards Per Carry. You can subscribe via iTunes, on Podbean, or your usual podcast provider.